How many friends do you have? Facebook tells me that I have over 900 friends. But if those of you that know me know that I don't spend hardly any time on Facebook. I mean, if there's somebody I need to contact, that's the only way I have to contact them. I can contact them through Facebook. Or if somebody has a birthday, I might wish them a happy birthday if I can notice that they have a birthday on there. But typically I don't spend very much time on it at all. If I comment on your post, then it's because I opened up Facebook and you were like the very top thing on my feed. And so I was like, oh, okay, something happened here, and I comment on it. But I don't spend much time on it. Now, some of you spend a lot of time on social media, whether it be Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Pinterest, all that kind of stuff. And you have a lot of interaction with people through social media. But if you're like me, and you may not be, but if some of my friends on Facebook, if you gave me their name and not their picture, I might not be able to identify them. Or if you gave me their picture and not their name, I might not know who they were. You know, it's just like there's not that quite connection. And even if you sort of interact with somebody online, there's just a limit. You don't have to really be truly friends with somebody to comment back and forth, online. But there are deeper friendships. Some of you have friends that, we're friends just because we're thrown together in some event or some situation. Like some of you have church friends. I mean, the only time you see each other is you come to church and you're there together, and so you kind of strike up a friendship. Or you have work friends, people that you work with and you develop friendships with. Now, those relationships can be developed and become very deep. But typically, if we, for whatever reason, stop being thrown together, we're not working with each other anymore, not in the same thing, then those relationships tend to drift apart because they kind of depended on us, being forced to be there together. Some of us have friendships that are based on common interests. Maybe you like running or biking or basket weaving or some other kind of activity, and there's somebody else you meet that does the same sort of thing, and you kind of strike up a friendship because you have the same common interest. You might have a common cause with somebody. Maybe you have a passion for helping kids, helping feed needy kids, or tutoring kids, or helping immigrants, or helping homeless, and you have this passion, and you meet somebody else that has the same passion, and you form this friendship. And those could be very, very powerful friendships when you're working together towards something like that. But there's a kind of friendship that's even deeper than that I would like to explore this morning. And it's a kind of friendship that as we talk about it and as we look at some Proverbs, and we've been studying through the book of Proverbs, and we're going to see some Proverbs on friendship. And as we look at these, this might cause in a lot of us a certain sort of longing, a certain sort of, I wish I had that kind of relationship. That kind of relationship, that kind of friendship is missing in my life. Because the truth is that many of us, perhaps most of us, feel very isolated, feel very, just honestly, pretty alone. I can't tell you how many times in just the last few weeks, in different ways, I've heard people say, I feel alone. I feel so isolated. I'm lonely. And that is where many, many, many of us are, no doubt. I don't doubt that probably the majority of us are there. And so you may experience some of that as we look at this, but I hope and I pray that as we look at friendship, that it will stir in you a way forward, a way out of that feeling of isolation and loneliness. First of all, let's just kind of look at the book of Proverbs and get a better idea of the kind of friendship that we're talking about, that kind of friendship that we really long for. Let's see if we get this going. Proverbs 17:17. A friend loves at all times, and a brother is born for a time of adversity. In this kind of friendship, you are there for each other. You're there for each other through dark times. In fact, for a lot of relationships we get, when we're going through a really hard time, they kind of distance themselves from us because it's like, they're kind of miserable. They're not really fun to be around with. You know, I don't want to just kind of, I'm going to let them kind of have their space, you know, just leave them alone. But this kind of friend doesn't say, hey, let me know if you need anything. This kind of friend is there. When you're going through a hard time, this kind of friend just is, it doesn't have to be invited. They're going to be there. They're going to go with you. They're going to walk with you through whatever it is that you're going with. When you hurt, they hurt. When they hurt, you hurt. When you're happy, they're happy. When they're happy, you're happy. You share this sort of emotional connection. It's different than what the proverb writer says here. This is kind of a humorous proverb, but really helpful. Like one who takes away a garment on a cold day, or like vinegar poured on a wound, is one who sings songs to a heavy heart. Now, what the proverb writer is getting at is an emotional disconnection, where a friend or someone has a heavy heart, is going through a really difficult time, but their friend is able to be happy and cheery around them because they don't have that connection with them. Aaron, I did not witness this. Aaron did, and told me about it. It's probably a good thing that I didn't witness it, but it was at the funeral of my brother's baby son. My brother's son died in childbirth, and we had this funeral. And as you can imagine, how emotional and difficult it was. And at the end of it, my sister-in-law was standing there looking at the casket of her baby boy about to be lowered there into the ground, or his body anyway. And she was looking at, and she had a friend of some kind, come up behind her, put her arm on her shoulder, and just say, bye-bye, I'll see you in a little while. And she meant the best, I'm sure. I'm sure she meant to encourage my sister-in-law. But what she revealed is she wasn't much of a friend, because she did not go with her where she was. She did not connect emotionally with my sister-in-law. She could be cheery when it just simply was not what my sister-in-law could do right then. And you know what that's like. The kind of friend that we're talking about is someone who, when you're sad, they are sad with you. When they are happy, you are happy with them. Now, this is a key. A good hint that you're not very good friends with somebody is if something great happens to them, they're promoted, they're praised, they get something really nice even that you wish you had, they get something really nice, something really great happens to them, and you're envious, okay? If you're envious, you're not friends, okay? You're not good friends, because a good friend, when something good happens to your friend, you're happy with them. You go with them emotionally. I've heard it said that you're only as happy as your unhappiest child. Okay? You're only as happy, if you're a parent, you're only as happy as your unhappiest child. And the reason for that is because you are emotionally connected to that child. And if they are unhappy, you go there. And you do it automatically as a parent. Most parents, that just happens automatically. But with a friend, that's something that you choose. And you have that emotional connection with them. This proverb refers to kind of the same thing. Proverbs 18:24. One who has unreliable friends soon comes to ruin, but there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother. There's such thing as a friendship that is tighter than a family relationship. Because your family relationships you're born with, right? You don't choose those. You don't choose who your family is, but you choose your friends. And there is a kind of friend who is with you through everything, and that is something that even more powerful than family. Also, a good friend is someone that you enjoy sharing life with, enjoy talking to. Look at Proverbs 27, verse 9. Perfume and incense bring joy to the heart, and the pleasantness of a friend springs from their heartfelt advice. It's the kind of friend where you just enjoy talking with them, enjoy getting advice from them, enjoy giving advice to them. You share back and forth because you know that they have your best interest at heart. You know that they sincerely want what's good for you, and whether you agree with everything they say or not, you enjoy having that interaction with them. And honestly, you don't always agree with your friend. Look at this. As iron sharpens iron, so one friend sharpens another, or so one person sharpens another. Friends don't have to agree on everything. In fact, friends can disagree strongly on things. And it doesn't destroy their friendship. It actually makes it stronger, and it makes them better. Because, when iron comes against iron, there's a rub there. There's a friction there, okay? But as that iron comes against iron, they sharpen each other. I remember I had a friend in college named Vic, and a brilliant guy. He's a college professor now, but we would sit around and we would debate stuff. We would talk about stuff. We had agreed on a lot of stuff, but there's stuff that we just disagreed on, that we'd come at different angles, and we would just argue with one another and just go this way, that way. And it didn't in the least make us worse friends. It made us better friends. It made us tighter. And I was stretched. I grew. I developed as part of that friendship because of our interaction, because of our disagreements. When you have a truly good friend, disagreements don't drive a wedge. If you have a disagreement with a friend and now you can't be friends anymore, they weren't very good friends to begin with. Good friends have that kind of effect on one another, even though sometimes it's painful. Get this one. It's Proverbs 27:6. Wounds from a friend can be trusted, but an enemy multiplies kisses. Wounds from a friend? You mean a friend can hurt you, even intentionally hurt you, and you can trust that wound? You can trust that hurt? What's that all about? What that's all about is that a good friend will tell you the truth, even when it's hard for them to tell you and even when it's hard for you to hear. A good friend will tell you the truth when they know it will hurt you, but ultimately could help you. A lot of times we might say, I just love them too much to tell them, that maybe they're making really bad decisions, maybe acting in a way that's ungodly, but I just love them too much to say anything about it. No, you love yourself too much to put yourself in the situation of telling them the truth. You don't want to go through that experience of having to tell them the truth. And so because you love yourself so much, you won't do it. See, it's an enemy that tells people what they want to hear all the time. An enemy just tells people what they want to hear. I'm just going to, make... That doesn't help a person. You don't help somebody by just telling them what they want to hear. Sometimes, you have to tell them the truth when it hurts. This has no relation to, going around saying, I'm just going to tell you the truth. I don't care what you think. Blah! I'm just going to slay you, destroy you here with my words. I'm not talking about that. We're talking about loving somebody enough that in love you will tell them the truth, even when it hurts. Wounds from a friend can be trusted. As we've talked about this, I would imagine that many of us, probably most of us, that have felt some sort of emotion as we talked about friends, some sort of hollowness, some sort of longing, some sort of wishing that I wish I had a friend that was like that. Some of you may have a friend like that. If you do, you're incredibly rich relationally. If you have more than one friend like that, it's very unusual. But a lot of us, I'm sure, have to have a certain amount of longing. And what do we do with that? It sounds ironic, but your loneliness, you are not alone in your loneliness, okay? If you feel a certain amount of loneliness, if you feel a certain amount of disconnection, isolation from other people, realize you are certainly not the only one. That is something that is just epidemic. It's just common among us. And what do we do with that? Well, if we want to try to do something about that, the first thing we don't do is we don't just go looking for a friend. I need a friend. I want a friend, so I'm just going to go look for a friend. That may work sometimes, but typically it doesn't. It's kind of like when you try to chase happiness. I'm going to pursue happiness. I just want to be happy. Probably the best way not to ever be happy is to chase happiness. That's just if I'm chasing happiness, I won't get there. Happiness just happens when I'm trusting God, doing His will, being where I need to be, doing what I need to be doing. Happiness is kind of a byproduct of that. You can't chase it. Friendship is in a little bit of way, kind of the same way. But I'm going to suggest two things for us to do with that isolation, with that loneliness that we may feel. And the first thing is going to sound really religious and spiritual, and you're going to be tempted to dismiss it, okay? You're going to hear it and say, oh, that's the kind of thing you say in church. That's the kind of thing that always people say in church. That don't just dismiss it, okay? Because this is key. It's real. It's not just a ethereal thing out there as it may sound to you, okay? Jesus said these words to His disciples before He was crucified. He said, I no longer call you servants, because a servant does not know his master's business. Instead, I have called you friends. For everything that I learned from my Father, I have made known to you. Jesus wants you to be His friend. Not just His servant, not just His subject, not just His follower, though all of those things are, but He wants to be your friend. Jesus doesn't simply say, come do what I say. Jesus says, come into my life. Jesus invites us into His life, invites us into a friendship with Him. He wants us to know Him. He wants us to be His friend. Now, I realize that for some of us, probably, that sounds almost as nonsense as saying, I have an imaginary friend. I mean, here's my imaginary friend. Here's Jesus. Here's my friend, and there's something, or something like New Age spiritual where, I'm just getting in contact with the God within me, kind of, just something that just sounds not really attainable. And I want to emphasize that is not the case. That having a friendship with Jesus is a real, concrete, lifelong relationship that is available to every single one of us. That if you are a Christian, if you are a follower of Jesus, if you have the Holy Spirit inside of you, then you can have a friendship, a true friendship relationship with Jesus, and it is something He desires. You didn't go to Him first. He came to you first. You didn't seek out His friendship first. He has come to seek out your friendship first. He wants that from you. Last weekend, Aaron shared with me a video of a lesson from the IF conference that was last weekend. And I watched like 3 different sessions, and they were just powerful. They were so good. The one that stuck out to me most was this 82-year-old woman named Jill Briscoe, who has spent her life sharing Jesus with people in the most difficult places on earth. Most difficult places on earth. And she has had more unbelievable experiences of sharing Jesus with people. But as she kind of shared her life, what she always kept coming back to, was what she called, well, I'll say it in her words, what she called conversations with God on the steps of her soul in the deep place where nobody goes. She would always come back to, and then I would come and meet with God. Meet with Him on the steps of my soul in the deep place where nobody knows. As she talked, you just got this overwhelming realization that she knows God. She knows Jesus. And that friendship, that relationship with Him just fueled her. She was living out her faith, but she was fueled by this relationship with God that she had. And though I'm not nearly as spiritually far along as she is in her life, I can say this with certainty. That my ability to make a difference in this world, to be Jesus in this world, to make a difference in the lives of people, to share Jesus in this world, to do Jesus' work, is completely dependent upon my friendship my relationship with Him. I cannot outgrow the relationship that I have with God. That drives it. That friendship with Jesus, that love for Him and that communication with Him, and that growing desire for Him, that love for Him that happens when you're in constant communication with Him, is just fuel for your life. It fills the deepest needs that you have in your life. See, I was made for God. You were made for God. Your heart was made for God. And when He fills those deep places in your heart, then you don't have to search for those that feeling to be filled somewhere else. I'm not saying this well at all. This is just not coming out well. But let me try to say it this way. Jesus is my closest friend. He is my greatest longing. He fills my deepest needs. All those deep needs that I have are filled by that friendship with Him. And that doesn't remove my desire for human relationships. I still have a desire for human relationships. What it does, though, is it takes the pressure off. It takes the pressure off of other people having to try to fill that hole that is inside of me, of trying to get other people to fill that loneliness, to fill that deep need that is inside of me. See, when God isn't filling that in my heart, then I search for that filling somewhere else. I search through it through relationships with people. I search for it through success, through doing well, through buying stuff, through getting stuff for being entertained. I try to fill that hole so many different ways. And see, when Jesus fills that need that only He can fill, then I don't have to desperately search for that need to be filled somewhere else. It takes the pressure off. So now I can have relationships with people without expecting them to fill my deepest needs, because my deepest needs are being filled. Somebody else doesn't have to do that. So people can let me down, and they will. People do. People let us down. Some of our closest friends let us down. And when that happens, we're hurt. We struggle with that. But we're not destroyed. We're not shattered, because our identity was not based on them. Our identity, our sense of self wasn't based on what they think and how they treat us and what position they hold in our life. That is firmly rooted in our relationship and our friendship with Jesus. And so now I don't depend on other people to make me okay. And that's huge. That's huge. And when that happens, when Jesus fills that deep longing inside of me, and that takes the pressure off of me, trying to fill it with other relationships, now I have the freedom to simply go about trying to be a good friend. See, here's the deal. The question is not, is somebody a good friend to me? Do I have somebody in my life who is that kind of friend, who sticks closer than a brother, who goes with me through good times and bad times, who feels happy when I'm happy, who feels sad when I'm sad, who will stick with me, who will be reliable, who will be trustworthy, who won't fade off when things, disagreements just bring us closer, they don't pull us apart. I'm looking for that kind of friend. No. The question is, am I being that kind of friend to others? The question is not whether other people are that kind of friend to me. My deep longing for friendship is being filled by my relationship with Jesus. Now I can focus on trying to be a good friend to others. Now, of course, if I'm striving to be a good friend to others, not depending on them returning it, not depending on them to fill my needs, because those needs are being filled already. But when I'm free to be a good friend, I am far more likely to find a good friend. But whether I do or not, I can truly be a good friend to others. You know, the Apostle Paul, most of you know, if you've read much of the Bible at all, especially the New Testament, you know that most of the books of the New Testament were written by Paul. Most of them are letters that he wrote while he was in prison. Paul spent his life, from the time he became a Christian until he died, he spent his life being pursued by people, being hated by people, being either chased out of town or put in jail or put in prison. Paul was stoned once. 3 times he was beaten with rods. Like 5 times he was flogged. He spent so many different segments of his life in prison, sometimes for years at a time. All the while, Paul was planting churches. Paul was discipling people. Paul was helping people become followers of Jesus. He was getting churches started. He was training leaders. He was doing this all over the Mediterranean world. Paul helped thousands of people in his lifetime, and now he's still helping us through reading his letters that he wrote while he was in prison. He had such an incredible impact on so very many people. So many people owed their faith, owed their life to Paul. I want you to listen to what Paul said to his young disciple Timothy when Paul was toward the end of his life. He was about to be on trial for the 2nd time going to Caesar. He says to Timothy, "At my first defense, no one came to my support, but everyone deserted me. May it not be held against them. But the Lord stood at my side, and He gave me strength so that through me the message might be fully proclaimed, and all the Gentiles might hear it, and I was delivered from the lion's mouth. The Lord will rescue me from every evil attack and will bring me safely to His heavenly kingdom. To Him be glory forever and ever. Amen." I want you to get this. Paul, who had helped all these people, and who had all these Christians surrounding him, Christian leaders surrounding him, who he was training, when the pressure was on and when things looked really bad, they scattered. And Paul was left alone. And when he stood trial, there was nobody who came and stood up for him. Nobody who came and said, "Look, all these things he's been accused of is false. This is the kind of man Paul is." Now, he had none of that. He was deserted. And what was his response to that? May it not be counted against them. How does he do that? How does he do that? How does he have these just lousy, sorry Christian friends who desert him in his time of deepest need, and all he has to say is, may it not be counted against them. No knife twist, no... Where did he get that? Well, it was because his friend, his deepest friend, his best friend was the one who taught him how to forgive. You know him. He was the guy who, when things went south, when the pressure got intense, when things looked really bad, his friends, his closest friends that he'd been with for years, they scattered. And he was beaten, and he was mocked, and he was flogged, and he was nailed to a cross alone. And there he stood writhing in pain, and these religious people mocking him. And he said, "Father, forgive them. They don't know what they were doing." He was standing at Paul's side. He was Paul's friend. And Jesus was enough for him. When Jesus is your friend, that is enough. The world may leave you alone. The world may abandon you. There may be times in your life that are the darkest times that you go through seemingly alone. But if He is your friend, He is enough. So, let us center our lives around forming and growing a friendship with God. Let us go and try to be a truly good friend. Friendship is a wonderful gift from God. But it all starts with our friendship with Him. Dear Father, I just thank you so much that you love us so deeply and so unendingly and so fiercely. And you have laid down your life for us. You have suffered for us. You have gone with us through the deepest and the darkest times in our life, and you do not abandon us. And you show us friendship. And you fill that void. You fill that deep need for relationship, for friendship in our lives. God, I pray that you will help us to embrace you as our friend, to not ignore the greatest need that we have, and that is our friendship with you. And that God, through that relationship with you, you might free us not to depend on other people to tell us who we are, not to depend on human relationships to be okay, but to be freed up to simply be a friend to those around us. To rejoice when they rejoice, to hurt when they hurt, to bear their burdens, to live life with them, to love them unconditionally. Give us the freedom to do that through that relationship you give us with you. Thank you, God. In Jesus' name, amen.